David Zhang. Here are some of today's top stories. A former law enforcement official sues Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Find out more about the accusations. A shooting in Oakland, California turned a Juneteenth celebration violent. FBI agents raided a property owned by the city's mayor. New Mexico requests from President Biden a major emergency declaration as the state battles wildfires and severe weather. First up, Florida's governor is getting sued. A former law enforcement official filed a lawsuit claiming he was forced to retire when he refused to carry out certain orders. A former Florida law enforcement official has filed a lawsuit against Governor Ron DeSantis and his aides. The official claims DeSantis forced him to retire after he refused to carry out what he claimed were illegal orders. The whistleblower is Shane Deskin. He is a career employee of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. He also accused DeSantis of unlawfully obtaining information on migrants and violating public records laws. DeSantis' spokesperson declined to comment, saying allegations would be addressed in court. Deskin's attorney did not comment beyond the lawsuit. Deskin is seeking damages and sued both DeSantis and the state's law enforcement department. Louisiana is now the first state to mandate a display of the Ten Commandments in every public school classroom.
Good.
The law signed on Wednesday by Governor Jeff Landry requires a poster-sized display of the Ten Commandments in large and easily readable font in all public classrooms, from kindergarten through the state-funded universities. Landry says a strong education system leads to a strong economy and state, and the move brings common sense back to the classroom. The posters will include a 4-paragraph context statement detailing the historical significance of the Ten Commandments in American public education. They must be displayed by the start of the 2025 school year. Proponents argue the measure is not solely religious but also historically significant. According to the law, the Ten Commandments are a foundational document of the state and national government. The measure was spearheaded by Republican State Representative Dodie Horton, who previously succeeded in requiring the national motto, "In God We Trust," to be displayed in classrooms. Opponents question the law's constitutionality and plan to challenge it in court. In 1980, a divided Supreme Court struck down the similar Kentucky law. The 5-4 decision found that the law signaled a government endorsement of a sacred text in the Jewish and Christian faiths, in violation of the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. The Establishment Clause reads, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. New sanctions are coming for a Mexico drug cartel involved in trafficking fentanyl into the U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen announced a new action on the opioid crisis at the border.
Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control has sanctioned 8 targets affiliated with La Nueva Familia Michoacana, a notorious Mexican criminal organization that traffics fentanyl and other legal drugs into the United States.
The sanctions cut the cartel off from the dollar-based financial system and freeze any assets that they may have in the U.S. In addition to fentanyl and precursor chemicals, the cartel also traffics cocaine and meth, as well as illegal immigrants into the U.S. Yellen also announced a new guidance for banks and the Treasury Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. This is to help them identify and report suspicious transactions by Mexico-based criminal organizations from China that are tied to fentanyl operations. These transactions related to procurement of fentanyl precursor chemicals and manufacturing equipment. U.S. Border Patrol says recreational boaters last weekend discovered the 65 pounds of cocaine floating in the Florida Keys.
Damn.
The drugs had a street value of about $1 million. Acting Chief Patrol Agent Samuel Briggs II announced the discovery in a post on X. A video shared alongside the announcement shows the packages of cocaine. The drug was wrapped in multiple packages emblazoned with the image of a bald eagle. Yesterday, the Monroe County Sheriff's Office said that an individual found a single brick of suspected cocaine in the trash. A string of cocaine discoveries have been made in Florida waters in recent years. Last August, the Tampa Mayor Jane Castor discovered 70 pounds of cocaine floating in the Atlantic Ocean during a trip with her family. A Juneteenth celebration in California turned violent after a fight broke out during a sideshow last night. And earlier this morning, FBI agents reportedly raided a property owned by the city's mayor.
Footage from the Citizen app shows a Juneteenth celebration in Oakland, California turned violent when several people were shot Wednesday night. Police said the Lake Merritt event was largely peaceful until a sideshow involving motorbikes and vehicles took place around 8:15 p.m. on the north side of the lake. About 5,000 people were present. A fight broke out down the street from the sideshow and a crowd gathered. Police said multiple shots were fired. While it was not immediately clear how many people were injured, police said several were struck by gunfire and were taken to a hospital. There were no reports of deaths. Police said 28 officers and 4 sergeants were at the scene to monitor the event. Police said the investigation was ongoing. Also in Oakland, Cron 4 reported that FBI agents raided a property owned by Mayor Sheng Tao Thursday morning. She was not at the scene. This comes just days after a recall campaign to remove her qualified for the November ballot this year. The Alameda County Registrar of Voters confirmed there were enough signatures. Another recall on the November ballot will let voters decide whether to keep or remove Alameda County District Attorney Pamela Price. Residents say she is too lenient on crime in the county.
Following the raid at Mayor Tao's property, FBI also raided the home connected to David Duan, whose family owns the company Cow Waste Solutions, Oakland's trash and recycling collector. 2 additional Oakland properties with the connections to the Duan family were also searched. So far, no official reasons have been given for the searches. This year, much of the country is dealing with severe weather. Authorities say at least 2 people are dead due to wildfires in New Mexico. Texas was hit with a storm as well. Here are the updates.
The state of New Mexico requested a major emergency declaration from President Biden. The state faced multiple natural disasters, wildfire, flood warnings, and a massive dust storm.
And it takes an immense amount of resources. That's why it's so important for agencies like FEMA to respond to these incidents quickly, to make sure to compensate and find housing for folks quickly. And frankly, the federal government has to do a much better job of responding to these fires.
New Mexico already declared a local emergency this week as 2 large fires converged, burning more than 23,000 acres in the southern part of the state. Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham's office confirmed that 2 people have died resulting from the fires and thousands evacuated. At the same time, the state issued warnings for floods and a dust storm. Heavy rain and hail fell Wednesday, and experts predict more moisture coming in from the Gulf of Mexico, bringing hope of relief. But it warned strong winds could cause problems for firefighters.
You have storms when you have lightning, when you have floods that are going down the hill, when you have lots of rain, you can't suppress fire under those conditions. And so the crews have to be pulled back.
Neighboring state Texas was also in a disaster declaration as Tropical Storm Alberto moved through the Gulf Coast. Governor Greg Abbott said residents should stay vigilant to keep themselves and their families safe. The National Hurricane Center said the hurricane's circulation has dissipated, but Mexico is still impacted. According to the National Weather Service, higher temperatures are forecasted for most of the U.S. as seen on the map. It's cooler in the north, but we watch the yellow and orange more in the 80s and 90s as we head into the weekend. Triple digits are expected among the southern parts of the U.S., nearly going coast to coast. David Lamb, NTD News.
The implementation of speed cameras on Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu, California is now one step closer to becoming a reality. NTD's Christina Corona has the story.
Legislation allowing the installation of speed cameras at 5 spots along Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu moved closer to approval on Tuesday, supported by the Assembly Transportation Committee. The committee approved SB 1297 on Monday, which already passed the state Senate. Senator Ben Allen, the bill's author, notes that while Pacific Coast Highway is one of California's most beautiful and picturesque roadways,
but literally every couple of months, the community is devastated by yet another fatal traffic accident with all sorts of serious crashes happening in between.
He said since he first introduced the bill, several people have already died on this road.
The many of these terrible incidences was on October 17th, 2023, when a young man speeding at 104 miles an hour on the PCH in Malibu, lost control of his vehicle, and killed 4 young Pepperdine University students standing on the side of the road.
The 4 students were Liam Rolston, Peyton Stewart, Asha Weir, and Deslyn Williams. The driver, Fraser Michael Bohm, 22, has been charged with 4 counts of murder and 4 counts of vehicular manslaughter with gross negligence. Since 2010, 60 people have been killed in vehicle accidents along the exceedingly dangerous stretch of the highway.
Crash data from last year from the LA County Sheriff reports something like 127 property damage collisions, 93 injury collisions, 7 deaths. The primary factor in all of these incidences was high vehicle speeding.
He says one proven way to slow drivers down is automated speed camera enforcement.
The faster a car is traveling, the greater the risk of serious injury or death. A pedestrian struck by a vehicle traveling only 40 miles per hour has an 80% chance of dying.
Infrastructure improvements have included speed limit markings, safety corridor signs, digital speed feedback signs, curve warnings, and upgrades to pedestrian signals. The bill is currently awaiting review by the Assembly Privacy and Consumer Protection Committee before advancing to the full Assembly and then to the governor. Christina Corona, NTD News.
We'll take a short break now, everybody, but here's a look at what we have for you when we come back. A luxury high-rise opens as a homeless shelter in downtown Los Angeles. The building is all taxpayer-funded.
Oh, my God.
A basketball rookie tears her ACL, taking her out for the season, while the Detroit Pistons fires their coach. Do
Everything's
elephants have names? A
taxpayer-funded.
new study shows African elephants use unique calls for different members of the herd. Those stories and more coming up on NTD Tonight.